So much of the world likes to tell us that if Israel were less aggressive, if they extended their hand out more in peace, if they didn't oppress the Palestinians so much, then there'd be peace, and they need to be doing more for peace, and Netanyahu needs to be doing more for peace. Oh my gosh, how the reality is the complete 180 reverse. And this isn't me saying that. This is Democratic Party member and former leader and former President of the United States, Bill Clinton, who tried his hardest to try and create a two-state solution, do a negotiation with the Jews and the Arabs, Israel, and what would be a Palestinian second state, by the way, because there already is one in Jordan. But nonetheless, this is Bill explaining that he's seen up close that it is not a lack of willingness to make peace on the side of the Jews. It's the Arabs. And he also says that it is so essential to understand that when people try and say Hamas are just resisting, which is so sickening anyway for many, many reasons given what they did, but nonetheless, Hamas attacked the peaceniks, the people who were the most supportive of a two-state solution and peace and trying to find ways to have mutual cooperation and live alongside each other. The people that were dancing at that festival, the people, many of them, and many of the people that lived in these kibbutzim, were the ones who were most in favour of trying to find a resolution to the conflict via a two-state solution. And Hamas attacked them, proving that the Palestinian cause is not about a legitimate grievance. It is not about resistance. It's about Jew hatred. And it's always been that way since the beginning of the story. Have a watch of Bill Clinton's words. I'm going to play 2 clips to you. Have a watch.
Let me talk about the hardest issue here in Michigan is the Middle East. And I have to be careful what I say because there's only one president at a time and none of us can get ahead of where we're going. But I think we're going to have to essentially start again on the peace process. And I understand why young Palestinian and Arab Americans in Michigan think too many people have died. I get that. But if you lived in one of those kibbutzim in Israel, right next to Gaza, where the people there were the most pro-friendship with Palestine, most pro-two-state solution of any of the Israeli communities, were the ones right next to Gaza. And Hamas butchered them. And so then the people who criticize it are essentially saying, yeah, but look how many people you've killed in Ritalin. So how many is enough for you to kill to punish them for the terrible things they did? That all sounds nice until you realize what would you do if it was your family and you hadn't done anything but support a homeland for the Palestinians, and one day they come for you and slaughter the people in your village. You would say, well, you'll have to forgive me. I'm not keeping score that way. It isn't how many we've had to kill, because Hamas makes sure that they're shielded by civilians. They'll force you to kill civilians if you want to defend yourself.
Yep, that's right. And let's watch this other clip of Bill Clinton.
And the only time Yasser Arafat didn't tell me the truth was when he promised me he was going to accept the peace deal that we had worked out, which would have given the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank and 4% of Israel, and they got to choose where the 4% of Israel was. So they would have the effect of the same land of all the West Bank. They would have a capital in East Jerusalem. They would have I can hardly talk about this. And they would have equal access all day, every day, to the security towers that Israel maintained all through the West Bank up to the Golden Heights. All this was offered, including, I will say it again, a capital in East Jerusalem and 2 of the 4 quadrants of the old city of Jerusalem, confirmed by the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and his cabinet. And they said no. And I think part of it is that Hamas did not care about a homeland for the Palestinians. They wanted to kill Israelis and make Israel uninhabitable. Well, I got news for them. They were there first. Before their faith existed, they were there. In the time of King David, and the southernmost tribes had Judea and Samaria.
Wow. That's, I mean, obviously it's the truth and it's obvious, but it's good to hear it coming from him. He's understanding that the Jewish people, the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people, and this is the most basic historical truth of any people and their connection to a land, and goes far back, further than any Arab connection to the land. But I'll tell you something that I do think is a little bit not quite accurate that he was saying. He was getting there, but not quite. He was saying it's Hamas proved they're not interested in Palestinian self-determination. They have proven that they were just interested in slaughtering Jews. I'm afraid to say that it's a little bit more problematic than that, President Clinton. It's not just Hamas. It's the whole Palestinian cause. I mean, look, he's getting there. He's getting there slowly waking up, slowly realizing the truth. There's this notion that President Biden said after October 7th, Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Actually, according to polling, they do. Not carried out by, Zionist organizations or anything like that. Carried out by Palestinian surveys. 70 to 80%, even recently, still supporting what Hamas did on October 7th. As he said, whether it's Arafat, who is not part of Hamas, or any of the leaders and the people they vote in, the whole point of the Palestinian cause, if you just study a little bit of the history, not even that much, just a bit, you'll see it's not about self-determination. It never has been. If it was about national self-determination, this would have been solved a century ago. And if you say, well, they want full national self-determination, it's in the entirety of the land. It's not fair just to split it. It's all theirs. Well, then why in between 1948 to 67 did they not try and get self-determination from the Egyptians and the Jordanians who were controlling Gaza and Judea and Samaria? They weren't bothered. Had the Arabs won in 1948, God forbid, and annihilated the Jewish state, there wasn't going to be an Arab state. There was going to be a little chunk would be Egypt, a little chunk would be Jordan, a little chunk would be Lebanon. The whole flag, the Palestinian cause, even the term Palestinian, it's just made up in order to try and kill the Jews. That's what it's all been about. I really can't see much of a qualitative difference between the Palestinian flag and the swastika. Genuinely. Both of them say to me, kill the Jews. That's all they've been associated with. I wish this weren't the case. I wish this weren't the case. I wish there was people who just said, yeah, we're happy to live alongside you, and that's it. But the problem is that the cause has been so outrageous that it has just been about Jew hatred. That I think people like Clinton just find it almost too outrageous to believe, and so they can't accept it. So they just say, well, it must just be Hamas, it must be. By the way, I'm sure there are people who do want peace with Jews and with Israel inside of the Palestinian territories. Part of the reason why we don't hear from them is suppression. They live in terror, fear, and also there may be a lot of people who actually genuinely do hate Israel, but they've just been brainwashed from birth, and maybe they can change their mind with a bit of re-education. I'm not denying that, and I do think that that's something that could happen. But, two things. Number one, at the moment, we have to acknowledge the reality. There is widespread support and that for Hamas and the agenda of Hamas, and that's what the Palestinian cause has always been about. That's point number one. Point number two is that it can't be Israel's primary duty to try and de-radicalize another people. Israel's primary responsibility is to protect her own people. And number three, it's become clear that the Palestinian state idea is not the way to create peace. We've tried it for a century, saying we'll split it in two, let's give it a go that way. They're not interested, as Bill Clinton just said. So, what are the options? Well, we need to understand why it is that the Palestinian state doesn't work, because what it is doing is telling them, if you keep trying, we'll eventually just fizzle out. Yes, maybe we are guilty. Maybe this land really does belong to you. They're not interested in national self-determination. They consider themselves part of the Arab world with a theological narrative that says Islam will dominate the world and territories once controlled by Islam must always be controlled by Islam. It's the theological issue they have. So you give them a Palestinian state in half of the land, so they're going to think, well, we've got to keep going. No, they just need to understand the truth that the entirety of this land belongs to the Jewish people. Arabs, which they consider themselves an inseparable part of, have 100 times the landmass, which they're welcome to live in. And they're welcome to live in Israel, but just with one little caveat. Don't try to kill us. I really don't think that's asking too much. If you've made it so far in this video, I have a request for you. JTV has been having a really big impact in spreading the truth about Israel and creating positive associations with the Jewish people, Judaism, and Israel. We've really grown a lot, particularly in the last year, and we're having a really significant impact, both for Jews and non-Jews. But I really want to take JTV to the next level so we can start to compete with the other big online media beasts that are often peddling anti-Israel content. And the way we're going to do that is to scale even faster. So I'd love to build a team where we have other presenters doing shows like me. Let's start doing documentaries, supplementary content, animated content, etc., etc. And to do that, I'd like to build a bit of a team. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one fundraising day, just one, where we try and build up some funding in order to fund such a team. Now, to do that, it's going to obviously require people to get involved. And I'm wondering if you would consider, if you're watching JTV content and appreciate what we do and want to help partner with us in taking this to the next level and spreading the truth farther and wider than ever before, I wonder if you'd consider partnering with us simply by running a mini page on the fundraiser that we do, where you just reach out to your contacts on that day that we choose to fundraise and see if they'll all chip in. If you'd be up for doing that, of which I would be so grateful, then please click on the Google form link in the video description of this video, where you can simply just put in a few contact details. It'll be a very small commitment, as I say, literally just one day that we'll all agree upon as a collective community. But the impact is going to be so big. There's such strength in numbers. If we all pull together and do this, we can take this to the next level. And as I say, all of us can partner together in bringing and spreading the truth to the whole world. So please do consider clicking on that link, filling in the form, and I'll be in touch very soon to talk about the next steps. Small commitment, but a big impact. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.